Good afternoon and welcome to the COVID-19 Financial Oversight Committee meeting, March 9th. We have our agenda, and our first item on the agenda is a follow-up from our January meeting. For those of you that are following, we had a request from our planning department for funds for a live music venue study. We deferred the conversation. The specific request is, have we asked any other sources for funding? Why is ARP the best source or the only source? And so I'd like to welcome Greg Claxton from Planning back to the committee to follow up on that question. And let me make sure I've got your mic on. I think you're good, Greg? Nope, hold on. Will you try this mic then? I've got them both turned on.
Oh, that sounded like, okay. Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Greg Claxton with the Planning Department. I'm here to follow up on our request for funding for music venue study. As you'll recall from last time, this is in response to a resolution passed about a year ago by the Metro Council asking to take an inventory of every live music venue, in Nashville to better inform the Metropolitan government as to how to best preserve these venues for decades to come. We worked with the Historical Commission, the Arts Commission, and the Convention and Visitors Bureau to develop a scope of work for this study. We also contacted two consulting firms to discuss the scope as well as what a project like this could cost. To put this in context of what we currently know about these music venues, the Chamber of Commerce in their 2020 music industry report identified 105 live music venues in Davidson County. However, most of these did not receive most of their revenue from live music. There were only 19 venues that were dependent on live musical events for the majority of their revenue. These venues are facing a number of current challenges, in addition to an acute crisis in the COVID pandemic that directly impacted their revenues. They also have very ongoing chronic stressors through things like rising property values, as well as consolidation within the live music industry. In addition, transitioning from the pandemic to the recovery as that kind of stumbles on and moves on is also exacerbating the chronic stressors, as huge demand for housing is putting pressure on smaller buildings close to downtown. And so out of all of that discussion, we developed a scope of work to do a very detailed assessment of the current venues, as well as venues that have recently closed or are relocating or are about to relocate or close. This would dig into things like ownership structure of both the venue and the operation, as well as the building, because often these are tenants, not building owners. Things like age and capacity of the venue, their operations, booking, how much of the revenue comes from live music, as well as market pressure, their zoning context, that sort of thing. Then we would ask the consultant to look at case studies of similar industry-specific protection in other cities in the country, and then identify tools that are appropriate for Nashville to sustain and grow venues to manage these chronic stressors exacerbated by the pandemic. These tools could include zoning and historical protections, or alternately zoning bonuses or zoning flexibility as property develops around them, financial support for either the operator or the property owner, and then there may be other tools. If possible, it would be great to identify other mechanisms of protection. In addition to the core of the study being focused on current live music venues, we also see opportunities to expand how we think about these tools in two different directions. One is looking ahead into the future, not just protecting our current set of live music venues, but also looking ahead to what can we do to help nurture and support the next generation of iconic music venues in other parts of the county, whether that's in Madison, down Nolensville Pike, or helping, doing what we can to help restore music to Jefferson Street. The other thing that we can think about, the other sort of natural place for a program like this to go, would be to look at other categories of businesses, other what are increasingly being called legacy businesses, long-time, iconic, locally owned businesses that face the same kinds of stressors. I want to emphasize the core of this study is the live music venues, but doing this work, we think, can identify how the same set of tools can be used in other contexts. And so overall, the study request is for $300,000. The overall study estimate that we got was for $300,000. This is sort of a maximum scope, assuming completely led by consultants with no partnership with the planning department. As we go through the procurement process, that number could come down as we look at appropriate roles between our department, Historical Commission, the Arts Commission, and the ultimate consultant. At the request of the committee, since the January meeting, we've been in contact with a number of other stakeholders and have secured a $40,000 commitment, $30,000 from the Chamber of Commerce, and $10,000 from the Convention and Visitors Bureau. And so with that, we've reduced our request for recovery funding to $260,000. And with that, I'm happy to take questions.
Councilwoman Gamble, and then Sepulveda and Johnston.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Claxton, for this very comprehensive and detailed information that you presented to us today. I recall when we made the allocation to support music venues from the CARES funding, there were a considerable amount of music venues that didn't qualify because of the fact that most of their income was not from live music. However, they were suffering just the same, if not even more, as some of our larger music venues. So we know that there is a need for a study like this to be all-inclusive of all of our music venues in Music City. I support this request. I appreciate you all coming back with additional funding support from our Convention and Visitors Bureau and Chamber of Commerce. This is a great collaboration that, as you stated, will help provide data and information that will not only support or help the current crisis that we're in, but looking forward and sustainability. So I appreciate that and I support this, and hopefully we can get this approved today. Thank you.
Councilwoman Sepulveda.
Great. Thank you for being here today. I just had couple of questions. So from the 19 venues that we supported through CARES Act, just so I have an idea, how many of those are still open and aren't closing?
I don't have the list of venues that were supported through CARES Act, but I'd be happy to follow that up when to bring this back when council considers this.
Yeah, I think that would be good information to have, just to know if the money that we allocated was enough, and if they are closing or have closed, then what was the missing piece?
Sure.
So we know that going into potentially funding this study and this support for other music venues.
And Greg, I can send you that list.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
And I was going to ask, didn't we have a final report of that funding, what was spent? Mm-hmm. And I guess it didn't include what venues are still open today, but if we can get that along with the list of venues and who's still open and how much was spent, because if I recall, I believe not all of the funding was expended. Was that correct?
I think there was some small amount that was not.
Right.
Remember we did two things. We did, the live music venue was originally $2 million. It got reduced to $1 million. It still wasn't fully subscribed. So I don't want to say we doubled, but I think we allowed those venues to apply for additional amounts. I don't know that it was double, but that got us to almost the full $1 million. Councilwoman Johnston, did you still have?
I also would be interested to know who all is still operating and not teetering, so to speak. I'm a little bit concerned about the scope of it, because when we look at 105 live music venues, that's kind of an obtuse definition, because you can have really any sort of establishment provide live music, and all of a sudden they're a live music venue. And it's my understanding anyway that what we're trying to study and what we're trying to protect are those iconic venues that are the vast majority of their revenue is from live music. They are like Exit In, for example, is obviously on the top of our head, or my head anyway. And so I'm wondering if we reduce the scope to include just those venues that are 100% live music oriented, if that number would come down, because, we're talking about a lot of money here that ARP has. And so relatively $260,000 doesn't sound like a lot, but it's still over $250,000 for a study. So I just want to make sure that we're being really, really specific about what we're studying, why we're studying it, and just really kind of hone in and elbow down on what that is. So you're nodding your head like you've, like you understand what I'm saying. Have we done that already? Are we just looking at basically, more than 50% of their income comes from live music, ticket sales, or whatever?
That is I think the characterization in the Chamber of Commerce study is that they are primarily dependent on live music for their revenue. That's the 19. I put the 105 in there to convey that the Chamber really did try to cast a wide net and identify where are all the places you could encounter live music. That's not that 105 isn't the universe that we would look at. It would be something more like the 19. Perfect. Now, we may not at the outset stick exclusively to that list as we figure out like what are the appropriate venues to be in here. But the point that you make of, who are the folks that are genuinely really dependent on live music and that are, sort of both shaping Nashville's character but also, kind of playing a big role in Nashville's music industry. That's the core of what we're looking for, not does a hotel happen to have,
Right.
a piano bar once a week.
Right, yeah, and I think maybe the definition, not word for word, but certainly leaned on, is the one that we used for that support that we gave through the CARES Act for those specific live music venues may be helpful in sort of narrowing that scope.
We'll incorporate that.
Councilwoman, I almost said Swahara. Gamble?
I'm a little I'm unclear on what Councilmember Johnston is proposing, because my understanding was that this proposal or this study would be more inclusive, not so restrictive as it was as we were with the CARES funding. So if the suggestion is that we're going to restrict it to just those 19 iconic music venues and not include music, other venues that provide music maybe on a weekly basis or on a musical audiences, not as a more than 50% of the time, would not be included in this study or will be included in this study. I guess that's what I'm trying to clarify.
So our understanding was that it's focused on venues that are primarily that are primarily dependent on live music. If the committee or the council would like, we could retain that as the focus, but include a very small number of less frequent music venues just to understand what issues are they facing. That again wouldn't be the core, but it would help us understand kind of all of the venues that are operating in the county.
I think that would be appropriate, considering that we do have quite a few music venues in the city that maybe not more than 50% of their revenue is dependent on music venues, but just the same, they were shut down and not able to continue operations during the pandemic and are still trying to recoup from the pandemic. I think that we should consider including those venues as well. And are you saying that out of the 105, 19 of those were 100% dependent, but the other 100 or 70 or 85 were not? So it would be a matter of including the other 85?
The other 85 or so were not primarily dependent on live music for their revenues. So they had some other source of funding, whether
Right.
it's a record store or a coffee shop or a hotel, or in some cases a university. Like they cast a pretty wide net there. I think if that's the direction from the committee and the council, I think we would still look for small kind of locally owned operators rather than, someone that's kind of a major establishment or tied to like national firms, that sort of thing.
Could they be included with this request, within this request?
If it's the direction of the committee and the council, I think we could, again, keep the focus on the ones that are primarily dependent on live music for their venue, but for their revenue, but include a small number of locally owned establishments that maybe
Could be a
rely on
cohort
mix,
for what you're trying to do
if
as well.
that's, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I've got Councilman Sepulveda, and then I'll come over to Sarah Finley.
Thank you. And Councilmember Gamble said some of the things I was going to say. I think it would be important to cast a wider net, seeing that this is a city of musicians and not many of them get the opportunity to play in those 19 venues. Many of them play in smaller stages. And so we've got to make sure that we're keeping that in the back of our heads, because when many of these places got shut down for one reason or another, those artists didn't have anywhere to go. So I would like to see what broadening that scope would look like.
Ms. Finley?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I like the idea of not being too limiting, because there are so many different types of music venues, but I'm sort of confused by the expansion concept, because if I think of all the places on Lower Broadway, they would fit the definition we just talked about as places that may not be entirely dependent on music for their revenue, but they do have music playing all the time. Mm-hmm. I think we need to be really specific about what we mean by expansion, because a study of places on Lower Broadway and the impact is very different than a study of Basement East and the impact. And so at some point, the study may not produce data that really is, understandable or relevant to potential action items. And so I'm kind of confused by the concept.
So one thing that I'm going to ask you all to think about as we talk about the scope of work is the proposal that you have in front of you essentially becomes our exhibit to the legislation. So if there is something in this, so the study scope of work is in this exhibit. It's included in this proposal. If there is something specific that needs to be said or not said that's on here, this becomes our exhibit, so this drives the legislation. So as we're thinking about what you want to see or not see in it, that's probably where we need to focus our attention. Councilwoman Sepulveda?
Yeah, and I agree with Sarah. I could see that being a problem. I guess the biggest issue is Lower Broadway. So would that mean, would it make sense to cut out Lower Broadway from that study and do something separate from them?
I think that's something we would need to take a close look at. I mean, it's kind of the position that we're in is we've got this very broad level look from the Chamber of Commerce and not a lot of other insight into ownership structures, that kind of thing, and how that differs from a venue like the Exit Inn versus the venues that are on Lower Broadway versus kind of these much smaller venues that show up in other places. My understanding from the prior discussion is it was those kind of smaller, less centrally located might be the what's of interest in expanding the scope. And so, it's something where we would kind of need to look at, what the actual structure is, kind of are these, the Lower Broadway venues tied to kind of larger, ownership organizations versus the ones that are really genuinely locally owned.
So I've got two more questions. Councilman Syracuse is here. He was the original sponsor of the resolution that requested this study. Do you want to take a minute to maybe, if you have you had an original vision of what you wanted, and maybe just, if that's helpful to the committee? You can do it right there. Let me get your mic.
There we go. Thank you so much, Chair. Of the 105 venues or so, I think it is important to include those from the perspective of looking at it from a broad perspective, that these are places that music is being played. However, the 19 are the ones that truly drive music tourism, and they drive the culture of Nashville as being a live music city. So I think it is important to note those 105 venues, that those are places where music can happen. But as far as the ones that we are losing, are those independent local venues that were dependent on ticket sales for their revenue. As far as the question goes about which ones we are losing, we are losing Exit In at the end of this year as we know it. The Rock Block is going to become more of a tourism-oriented destination instead of one that supports the working creatives. Station Inn's lease is up at 2024. Third and Lindsley has immense development pressure around it. We're losing all of Cannery Row as we know it at the end of May. So this is becoming what I feel is a critical issue. And so this is both an economic issue, economic development issue. It's also a cultural issue. What kind of city do we want to become as we build back better? It is extraordinary to see that we've come from a place where musicians used to be able to thrive here. From the broad perspective, we can't take for granted anymore that we are Music City. We are starting to lose some of the core elements, whether it's affordable housing for musicians, support for small businesses, specifically in this sector. This speaks to a larger issue that this is building towards, which is the revitalization of the Music City Music Council, which is going to happen, and I'm about to codify that in a resolution that's going to be coming to council. But ultimately, I heard you last time. I totally agree with you that there need to be more participatory funding for this, which is why I did secure that extra $40,000. That foreshadows where we are headed with participatory cost sharing of a stable and sustainable music council. This is a big part of this. This is something that council should be doing. If we lose these venues, cities around us are nibbling at our heels to take a piece of what we got. Huntsville just hired a music officer in their mayor's office. In this day and age, in the digital age, if creatives can't find a place to live, to be able to do their work here, it doesn't matter, they can go down the street. We want to keep them here. And so having these kind of venues here is critically important to the overall ecosystem that we have in Nashville. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Back to. Go ahead. Councilman Johnston.
Sorry. I just want to reiterate that, we're not talking about financially supporting right now. This is just funding a study to look at, in my opinion, challenges that were there well before we even knew what the pandemic was. This has been a threat, honestly, for years and years. And so, yes, it was exacerbated by COVID, and it showed how vulnerable they are from a revenue perspective. But also these are just inherent challenges that we have just from economic growth and where the city is going. And so I don't want anybody to feel like we're leaving anyone out from it. But we are trying to look to see what are the tools at our disposal. What are other cities doing to protect this industry, so that we can possibly put those tools into place to protect that as well.
Sarah, did you have anything else? Oops, sorry.
Just raising the question of whether or not we are talking about places that where their revenues are derived from selling access to music, as opposed to places that are, bars and restaurants. I mean, we're blessed with music in so many places in the city, but not a lot of them necessarily are selling tickets to hear music. And so we learned with the CARES Act that how to draw the lines is very difficult, but just that could be a point of clarification.
Sure, and Greg, I sent this to you. Councilmember Syracuse just went through the different locations that are closing. I'm happy to read this really quick. I don't know if these are the same 19. I actually have 20. But of the, let me make sure it's 20. 19, sorry. So I think these are probably the same 19 that you're referring to. The 19 live music venues that received funding during the CARES Act with our Coronavirus Relief Fund were Mercy Lounge, Play, The Listening Room, Exit Inn, Third and Lindsley, Bluebird Cafe, Buchanan's 2009, the East Room, Rudy's Jazz Room, the Five Spot, The End, Nashville Palace. Legal name was Springwater. I'm sorry, I don't know the DBA. Basement East, Station Inn. Dark Matter is, I can't remember which venue that is. Again, that's their legal name. I don't remember the DBA. Cobra Nashville, Cannery Ballroom, and High Watt. So just, not that you got all of those, but that's the flavor of who we're talking about on the 19. So to keep us moving, if there is something that we want differently stated in this scope of work, we need to either decide that, make that change. Does this scope of work cover the spirit of what you all expect these funds to be used? Based on the conversation, I think planning has taken some good notes and how that would transpire in the actual contract with a consultant. Any changes to the scope of work? Any other conversations? Any motions? Thank you. We have a motion. Second? Second. Any other questions, conversation? The motion is to approve $260,000 for the study with the scope of work as presented. All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? We have 2, 4, 6, 7 in favor, 0 against.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the continuation for our small business recovery plan. So again, quick reminder, this committee did previously approve $2 million for funding for nonprofits who could assist with the small business recovery plan. So $20 million was appropriated. $18 million went to Pathway Lending to partner and provide not only grants, but also loans. So that was split between capital lending and grant funds. That program will launch, but a really important part of bringing all of the business community to those funds is this technical assistance and marketing and outreach. So as we talk about, we brought some of the, we get recommendations from you all. Who should we make sure we reach out to apply? I think Director Pogue can tell you a few others came to light even after that meeting. So a request for proposal was put out, and I'm going to turn it over to Director Pogue.
Good afternoon, council members, committee members. As far as the update to the Nashville Small Business Recovery Fund, we are currently received 10 proposals in regards to the program from a number of nonprofits wanting to support the program. As far as the overall program, we currently have a draft contract with Pathway that will be sent to them shortly to get the base of the program up and going. And from there, we are finalizing the overall application that should launch once we have the agreement with Pathway, and also look at ways to meet with the various nonprofit organizations once you make a decision which ones we should work with. We put out a request for services to a number of nonprofits back in February 18th of 2022. From there, we got roughly 7 initial responses. Once we saw we only had 7, we asked for additional responses from a number of other organizations to help us with the providing services for the Nashville Small Business Recovery Program. And so what we outlined within the response, there's a desire to have outreach and technical services that would target communities that have been underserved and had unmet needs as far as capital and resources, and that have historically faced barriers to entrepreneurship and small business success, such as minority-owned businesses. So it was our plan to make sure that the Nashville Small Business Recovery Fund was available and accessible, so economic recovery is equitable and does not have long-standing disparities here in Nashville. So we had two components set aside the $2 million for the nonprofit organizations. We were seeking 10 organizations to apply to the program, to be a resource partner to both Metro and to Pathway to support the program. Speaking to Mary Jo Wiggins, we set aside or set the limits for $500,000 for marketing and technical assistance, and those organizations only providing marketing and outreach services, it was capped at $50,000. So under the technical assistance component of the request for services, we were looking for entities that can help complete the program application, including obtaining any required supporting documentation, one-on-one small business assistance, along with providing support to both Metro and Pathway lending in managing this program. And from there, we were looking for support for the businesses to help the businesses with incomplete applications. We also wanted the component of technical assistance to have that entity to provide referrals to local and state resources to help stabilize business operations, preserve jobs, support long-term business success. That included accounting, e-commerce activities, or program to platform development, marketing, legal advice, and registration assistance. All those things you need to have a stable and growing business. On the marketing and outreach side, we were looking for print and social media support to help get the word out about the actual program. Also looking for public service announcements to make sure we were getting to all the various communities that make up Nashville, and also having personal visits to the targeted businesses throughout Nashville. I think we learned from I wasn't here, but I think we learned from the CARES program that having that one-on-one and doing some door knocking and really engaging the businesses one-on-one and going to the communities is more valuable than just sending out a flyer or email. So we were looking for that. But also overall, other forms of effective marketing and business outreach we were looking for from these various entities. So as far as the submissions, the structure of those we're looking for a cover letter, background experience, kind of highlighting what they have worked on historically, personnel and professional qualifications, specialized knowledge relating to small business support, and providing technical competence for this program. And also, what is their actual approach for providing the services they were outlining. We also set aside a scoring criteria based upon basically 90 points. 10 points were set aside for pricing or cost of the program. We did not score for that, so we kind of left that out. But 30 points were given to qualifications of the personnel and providing business outreach knowledge, but also technical assistance. 40 points were given toward providing the actual services and experience with past projects and client contacts. And 20 points was given or set aside for project approach. The applications we received applications from the Nashville LGBT Chamber of Commerce, the Nashville Area Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Tennessee Latin America Chamber of Commerce, Conexion, Corner to Corner, Equity Alliance, the Border Business Coalition, the JUMP, NBIC, and the Southeast Center for Cooperative Economics. The total requested amount from these 10 entities was $3,273,060. Of course, we don't have that. So we did some scoring for the applications, ranking them. And so looking at the scoring, we make some decisions about the actual, what we could actually fund for this program with the 10 nonprofit organizations. And from there, the Nashville LGBT Chamber requested $50,000. We are recommending support for the $50,000. The Nashville Area Hispanic Chamber of Commerce requested $51,000. We recommend $50,000. The Tennessee Latin American Chamber of Commerce requested $210,000. We are recommending the full support of the requested amount. Conexión requested $289,960. We are recommending $289,960. Corner to Corner requested $475,000, excuse me. We are recommending $475,000. Equity Alliance requested $309,600. There's a typo here, so we're recommending $150,000 for their program. The Bordeaux Business Coalition requested $300,000. We are recommending $50,000 for marketing and outreach services only. Jump requested $195,000. We're recommending $50,000. NBIC requested $1,392,500. We are recommending the full cap of $500,000 for this program, outreach services. And Southeast Center for Cooperative Economics requested, didn't have a request, but based on proposal, we are recommending $50,000 for marketing and outreach. Based upon the total amount of the recommended amount, that entails $1,834,960. Therefore, leaving roughly about $125,000 as you see fit for the other entities. With that, if there are any questions in regards to our structure and outlines and how we propose this, please let me know.
Thank you. So it'd be interesting. I know we just received these proposals yesterday, late or early in the evening, and I have not had a chance to go over exactly what each group is proposing to do and how they're proposing to do it. I'm assuming that's in all of those attachments. My question is, like, for example, Jump that requested $195 and we're recommending, or you're recommending $50,000. Is that going to hamper what they're doing? It's kind of like, I need $195,000 to build a house, but if you only give me $50,000, I can't build the house. So what's the $50,000 for type thing? I'm just wondering where we're at with that, or do you feel like at least the scope of their work, maybe not as much because the funding is not as much as they're requesting. Can they still do the job that they are proposing to do with the lesser funding that they're asking for?
I think they were looking to do more technical services, but also some marketing and outreach. So, and doing a carve out, just looking at marketing and outreach, then that $50,000 does support that. We did, staff and I, Eric Brown, Fabian Bettany, and myself did score these applications. So utilizing the scoring criteria, looking at the proposals and looking at their experience they provided within the applications, we made a determination that, yes, you can do marketing and outreach within this budget. Your proposal for technical services is not as strong as you have outlined, so we recommend that you go to the marketing and outreach services component of the.
Gotcha. All right, thank you very much.
How about now? Yeah, we go. Okay.
There you go.
Thank you. Can we assume that the ones that are at 50,000 are outreach, marketing and outreach, And then we have the Latin American Chamber, Conexión, Corner to Corner, and Equity Alliance, and NBIC that exceeded the 50, and those are doing technical, or technical and/or maybe marketing, both?
That is correct.
Okay.
So I believe you and I had set a cap of $50,000 at our last meeting we had in February for marketing outreach. Those who provided technical assistance and marketing outreach should be capped at $500,000.
Thank you. And Councilwoman Sepulveda.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. Did we get the breakdown of how much you all recommended for each organization?
Yes, that was actually in the PowerPoint. There's a typo for Equity Alliance, so it should be $150, not $50,000.
Thank you.
Okay. Yep, I've got Councilwoman Gamble and then Jose.
Thank you, and thank you, Director Pogue, for your work in scoring these applications and reaching out to these organizations to submit applications. I guess my question is, previously and throughout this process, we have, I guess, interviewed, for lack of a better word, the organizations that we are interested in partnering with to ask specific questions, such as what Councilmember Johnston asked, how this funding that is being recommended, what the impact would be as opposed to what they proposed. Will we have an opportunity to do that in this regard, or have we changed the process in that we will just basically be going on the recommendation that we got today? I guess that's a question for Mary Jo.
And really, that's open to the will of this committee. This is different than we have done in the past with the nonprofits coming and talking about it. I think one of the things that this approach, I think that Director Pogue and his team probably spent a lot of time going through what are pretty in-depth proposals and trying to do some of the heavy lift for the committee. I think that's the real benefit to having done that. I think if there are specific questions and you all want the nonprofits to come back to facilitate some of those questions, I think we then have to just have one more meeting with the, with the content if that's preferred. I'll leave that to the will of the committee. So, yeah, go ahead.
So I think, if there's over 10 proposals and some are 50 pages, some are 5 pages, some are 25 pages. We did a lot of work looking at your proposals. We did a lot of work crafting in our requests for services that was unique in a sense. We wanted to really target the communities that have been underserved with these dollars. And so we crafted a proposal or request that really kind of outlined that, and then got in roughly 7 proposals initially. And then because we saw that there was a need for additional services, we engaged with a few more entities and asked for them to submit a proposal. Then staff scored those proposals, spent a lot of time in scoring, utilizing the various criteria we outlined, from 30 points, 40 points, 20 points, but also there was some points set aside for scoring for costs. We didn't score on costs. We kind of removed that from the equation.
Right, I understand that, and I do appreciate that, because as it's been stated before, we're just now seeing the proposals, I guess, late yesterday. So you all haven't done all that work was very helpful within the time frame that we would have been able to do it. I guess my follow-up to that is, we should require the reporting mechanisms that we have previously. Has that been included as a requirement with these proposals, and in that, again, suggesting that that we have an idea of what the expected outcomes or impact of the money would be, and then asking that the reporting requirement to be included with that, and if we need to address that directly with the organizations, or if that's something that you, Director Pogue, and your team would be able to do?
I think we'll be able to do that. Reporting, as we stated before, Pathway would be on a monthly basis. So these entities will support Pathway in getting the word out about this program. So that'll be a roll-up report with Pathway, but also making sure if there's a lag or there's someone dropping the ball, we'll make sure we're on top of that on a monthly basis also with these organizations to make sure they're getting the word out about this program. I think what we're hearing from the community, and I'm sure you hear from the community, that these programs, and not just this program, but a lot of small business programs, the word has not gotten out properly. So we're trying to change that narrative. So that's why we have a diverse set of applicants here. I'm not sure if some of these entities have applied before, but it's great to have 10 organizations that really will go into the community from North Nashville and Antioch and Southeast Nashville, East Nashville, West Nashville to get the word out about this program.
And I might add, similar to what we had in the reporting, we have that those reporting requirements. And if you all remember, the nonprofits had to report back the number of businesses that they served, and we had some of the demographics that we wanted to cover. I think we would want to include that in the scope of work, and that would come directly from the nonprofit organizations. As Director Pogue said, I think it's also part of a roll-up. Because we want to make sure that there's that partnership happening with Pathway. But I think even independently, we want those organizations to submit that same type of demographic, number of businesses served, particularly maybe segregated between technical assistance and marketing and outreach if somebody's doing both. So the marketing and outreach piece is new for this. We didn't do that last time with the Coronavirus Relief Fund. So I think we would ask for some of those details of how did you reach out? Was it in person, door knocking, social media, printed materials. So I think that as we draft the resolution for those nonprofits, that would be outlined in the scope of work. I had Jose, and then I've got Councilmember Johnston. I gotta see where you're at.
Thank you. So a couple of comments. First, I need to make the committee aware I'm going to abstain from the vote later because clearly there's conflict of interest. There's a representative connection. But I do have some general comments. I glanced. I had an opportunity just for a few minutes this morning to glance at the proposals, and of course and of course having been on the other side, the depth and the depth of the application was very solid, and so I commend your team because that really, the scope of the questions and the depth of the analysis of what's being asked and supported, that I suspect that that you didn't get more applications precisely because, in order to submit an application, there had to be already some expertise or some depth in the organizations that submitted, and so, I see that as a benefit that you had to score less. Generally speaking. So good application. And I'm glad to see, and I had forgotten about capping the amount of money for marketing. And I mean, I'm trying to balance the argument of the importance of reaching corners of the city that hadn't been reached before or that are not actually reachable usually through normal channels or normal mechanisms. And I'm trying to balance that with the fact that I do see quite a bit of duplication in the proposals. Again, just glad I didn't go deep. And again, knowing this space, decently, duplication in the efforts, or I see a lot about database development, website development, navigation services, brochures, contracting media channels that target these populations. In a way, a lot of duplicity there. And so I don't know how to balance that. I don't know how to say, on the one hand, you say, that's part of what we're trying to do is to reach all these corners. And so what if there's 3 organizations that are going to enter into a contract with the same media outlet? That's just more branding of the program. At the same time, these are public funds, and so I'm thinking, is that even necessary? And if it's not, then how do you address that? Do you bring the organizations together and say, you all need to sit around the table and agree on a consolidated marketing and outreach plan, so that there's no duplication, but rather leveraging of everybody's geographic footprint or expertise or what have you, right? And so I don't know that I have a question in this, other than it's just a comment, because I'm struggling with those two: the need to reach people, and the other, the clear duplication. And then my last comment is this: on the measuring of the results. Mary Jo, you just alluded to this, and I like the notion of thinking about there's a difference between outreaching people and somebody grabbing someone by the hand and actually putting money in that individual's pocket or that business pocket. And we know that's what the technical assistance does. And so I would just encourage us all to think, and as you said, the program in place, that we are able to how we're going to measure those results, right? It's because navigating somebody could say, hey, I got a call, I navigated someone to this resource, check. That's one service provider, right, that provided. Versus someone walking in and sitting down and helping them with their accounting and updating their permits and filling the application and walking the hands of the application and then getting funded. And so how do we uniform the reporting mechanism so that we are actually comparing apples to apples at the end when we're on the backside of this and saying, look, this is really, and you have a lot of experience with rolling programs like this, so I would just encourage you and your team to think about that and put things in place that address that reality of what I know, again, just from being on the other side, how this world usually works out.
And so in response to that, realize that Pathway is the lead dog in this race. We don't have the staff internally to kind of manage all these activities. So what my role is and what my staff role is to really manage that contract with Pathway and make sure Pathway works with these vendors to address those issues of duplication, but also issues of outreach and marketing and the strategy there, and make sure we're shaping that we're not duplicating efforts in the sense of different communities. I think Pathway has that data, they do have that data from the last CARES Act program, where we can pinpoint exactly where we didn't actually do a lot of good outreach in some of these communities. And so utilizing that data and working with Pathway, being the lead organization on this, that's part of their contract, which we're trying to finalize now, to really have a structure in place to make sure that Pathway gets support from the nonprofit organizations to make sure we engage the various communities that were not fully served with the CARES Act dollars or served with the PPP loan dollars or EIDL dollars. So we're trying to really change that narrative. And so having, one, staff that has experience doing this, but also having a entity that has capacity to really provide the resources, the information, but also prevent duplication of services, but also really have the data reporting requirements both for marketing and outreach and also for technical assistance. So it's a true roll-up program where you can see exactly from the zip code, from the council districts, demographic data, business data, all the data that you really need, which is pretty much typical for these programs around the country.
So, and I'll add, well, go ahead.
A clarifying question, just so are the contracts, the nonprofit contracts, are going to be between Pathway and the nonprofits, or between the city and?
Yeah.
Because if it's between the city, then
nonprofit organization will support Pathway. This is the overall goal of this program, to have the nonprofit organization support Pathway.
So there is certain level of accountability and control that the city has on some of the, right, working, and I'm not, of course, Pathway knows a lot and should be an important voice in like how that gets crafted and those contracts get crafted, but ultimately, right, it's us, the city, that's going to evaluate the success of each contract.
And that's why we have partners with Pathway to make sure we draft a contract that, one, the nonprofits can perform, but also make Pathway has a good contract between, or agreement between, or working relationship between the nonprofits and Pathway. Because overall, they're managing $18 million. And the goal is for us to get the $18 million out to all the communities in Nashville. I don't have a capacity to get $18 million out unless you guys will give me a budget for $20 million for an organization. I don't think that's on the table right now.
Yeah, I do want to clarify, similar to what Councilmember Gamble was asking before on reporting, that reporting will come to the committee. The nonprofits will actually be reporting back to this committee on the number of businesses served. And to what you were asking, Jose, I think it's really important, and this happened pretty easily last time, is the reports won't all look exactly the same. We do give the nonprofits some flexibility in what they're reporting, because some will be doing maybe assistance just specifically to help these businesses secure their applications to Pathway. Some may provide additional technical assistance beyond the applications because they need accounting or legal or that kind of assistance. And then you have the marketing and outreach, which is going to be totally different. So like, as you were kind of saying, it's not all the same, but I think we have two very defined buckets. Marketing and outreach could literally be, we sent 1,200 flyers. Well, again, that doesn't mean that those 1,200 businesses all signed up. So that reporting mechanism back to the committee is very important, and that's not necessarily going to be under Pathway. That's going to be under this committee, looking at those reports back as we progress through those connections. So the nonprofits will be responsible for reporting back, and we did it last time. We did monthly reports. So every month we get a report from the nonprofits that were providing the technical assistance. And so the numbers that are reported for marketing and outreach, we would expect them to be higher numbers at this point, right, than technical assistance, because it's two different services. So, okay, and I had Councilwoman Sepulveda first, and then Councilwoman Johnston.
Great. I do want to commend the diversity of the entities that did apply. I think that's great. I know that had been a struggle in the past, so I do appreciate that. I do need to abstain from this vote as well for a conflict of interest. I just had one clarifying question. I know that last time when we were doing business relief through CARES Act, we kind of had a lag in when the nonprofits actually received the money. So I wanted to get an idea of how long it would take once approved by council for the money to reach Pathway and reach the nonprofits and the chambers.
So it's typically about a 2-week process. It can take longer, depending, but once council approves, then the contract is sent to the nonprofits. Once they sign it, it gets filed with the clerk. Once it's filed with the clerk, then it can be funded. So that can take, the fastest it's probably going to take is about 2 weeks. But that's just a matter of, this is a lot of nonprofits, so it takes a little bit more, it's a little bigger lift to get the contracts all drafted and sent off to them. And as a reminder, this is unique, we do provide them the funding up front. So there wasn't much of a delay last time. It might always feel slower than they thought it should be, but with it being in advance, it wasn't a reimbursement, which is unique for Metro. And it's super helpful in these scenarios, because this lots of times is new work. Go ahead.
Thank you. So I've got several questions. On the technical aspect of it, I think it's easier anyway to report on who because you're touching that person, right, or that business. And so who you're helping, how you're helping them, what they're doing is easy to report. When you said the funding is put out immediately, are you saying to Pathway, or does it go to these nonprofits immediately in a lump sum?
We will, with these contracts, we have typically advanced it.
Okay, is there any type of clawback provision that if they are not serving, I mean, I don't know what the language is. I just want to make sure that we're not going to have a group sit back and be like, yeah, we're providing technical assistance, but they're really lagging behind the rest. Because I would rather pull that money back and put it to the groups that are actually really out there hustling and helping folks. So is there that provision from the technical assistance aspect?
The contract, the standard Metro grant contract will say if you don't meet the scope of work, upon review, you may owe the funds back to Metro.
And what is that scope of work, or what are they being expected? What is their threshold of you're being effective or not being effective?
Within, I have to say I've not read through every single application, but typically the proposals should say how many businesses they think they can serve. So
Okay.
that's what we did
Yeah,
last
they have that
time.
in proposals. So some outline how many businesses they would touch, number of events they're going to host, number of in-person events, number of doors they're going to knock on,
Okay.
number of people they're going to hire. All those things have been kind of laid out in various proposals. So that would then be transferred into their actual
Okay, perfect.
scope.
So for marketing, marketing is kind of an obtuse thing where you can say, oh, here's $50,000 or whatever amount of dollars. Okay, I'm doing Facebook ads, or I'm doing, a marketing is as good as, is it being effective? So as far as that goes, because we're still looking at, and just to clarify, the groups that are getting $50,000 only, they're just doing marketing, correct?
Marketing and outreach.
Marketing and outreach. And then the others that are getting more than that, they're not doing marketing, or they are in
They're doing
some.
both.
They're doing both. Okay, so we've got over $250,000 in the marketing and outreach, aspect. And to Jose's point of duplication, I'm wondering, for example, and the only reason this comes to my head is just because I'm thinking, like, how do people get word out? Because I'm not a marketing person. But I know that in my district, we have a Hispanic radio station that I would assume that some of these chambers would use, or you like the Hispanic and the Latin chamber, right? Two different things. It doesn't make sense to me for both of those to utilize one radio station, because obviously the outreach at that radio station is X. And so having two people purchase ads for that doesn't make any sense. So is it possible to, and I hate to be super micromanaging, but at the same time, I want to make sure that these dollars are being effective and not just, oh, well, we've bought these ads, or, oh, we've done this, we've sent out flyers. Because it's like, let's send out 100,000 flyers. Okay, well, what did that get me? So I'd like to know what specifically they're doing and to prevent duplication, number one. And then also, if there's a way in this reporting to say I'm ABC company, and I heard about it from the radio station. When they come to apply for those funds, can we add on there where they heard about this so that we can know exactly where that outreach was effective or not?
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be super helpful. And then if we've got a group that's really not showing any effectiveness, again, I'd like that clawback provision in there to say, whatever it is you're doing is not being very effective. We need to move it to where it is being effective. Is that a possibility as well?
I guess based upon this body, you can make a recommendation to move the money around. I mean,
I just don't want it to sit. I mean, it's still a lot of money to sit and not be effective. I mean, we obviously want to make these dollars have as much of an impact as possible. And so if the marketing strategies that a specific group is using is not being effective, then we need to do something about that, right? I mean, in my mind.
If the money's advancing, yes. If the metrics show from the monthly reporting they're not performing up to standards, then this body has the right to reallocate those dollars, and then we'll make a decision from my level.
So my concern is, what if in the first month the $50,000 is gone? They've spent it. They spent all the $50,000 at the Hispanic radio station. And I'm sorry, I don't know the name of it. It's escaping me. But at that point, there's nothing to claw back, right? So I'm just trying to figure out the best way to be really responsible with these dollars, because marketing to me is this really big word around that there's not a whole lot of measurability and accountability in those dollars of how are they actually being effective.
I agree. I think I thought there was a clawback, or do we have a clawback?
It's just in the standard contract that at the end of the contract, upon review, if you're if you have not met the scope of work, they can, basically you owe the money back. And that's even after, I'll just tell you historically, that's even after they've submitted all of invoices, like even on a reimbursement contract, they can submit invoices, everything can be approved, and the money has been paid out on a grant contract. And if it wasn't spent in accordance with the contract, we have asked for nonprofits to return the money. I mean, it's tough, because you're right, it's been spent.
Yeah. Okay. So perfect. I think it would be really helpful on those applications of where did you hear about this? What group, what radio station, whatever, so that we can track it back, not only to find out which groups are being effective, but also what methods are effective, because we've never done this before, being really, really aggressive and specific about reaching out to these communities. So tracking that just for future reference, I think would be helpful as well.
Absolutely. We'll definitely have that where people heard about the program and have that metric in the actual monthly reporting.
I've got Sarah Finley and then Sean, and then, do you still have a question, Sarah? Okay. I thought I saw your hand before.
Yeah. No, just looking at the scoring of the applicants, and first of all, I just want to thank you for the presentation, and also the breadth of doing what we were trying to do is to reach as many people as we can in a fairly short time period so they can understand this program. And looking at the rankings, there's some that ranked high and got, 100% of what they requested. There are others that ranked high and got less than what they requested. There's one example of, a couple that ranked lower than the others that got less than what they requested. In one case, didn't request any, and I'm not quite sure I understand that background. So I guess the question is, if the rankings are being used, I guess a judgment call had to be made that $50,000 with a lower ranked organization was going to be more effective than $50,000 more given to a higher ranked organization. And I guess I just love to know the thinking there about what that kind of analysis was, because it seems like everybody got something, but the rankings didn't seem to be really used that much.
Yeah, if we look at the rankings, I think, TLAC was ranked number 1. They got 90 points out of possible 90 points. Number 2 is the NBIC. They asked for $1.392 million. We had capped this program in the request at $500,000 for both marketing and technical assistance. So they're well above the cap of this program that was outlined in the actual request, but also conveyed within its body that we were capped at $500,000 for technical assistance, marketing, and outreach. Number 3 was Conexion. They're $289, $960. They got their full amount. Number 4 is Corner to Corner at $475. It's below $500,000. They got their full amount. Number 5 was the Hispanic Chamber. They asked for $51,000 for marketing and outreach. We capped it at $50,000. That was a cap for marketing and outreach of $50,000. Number 6, LGBT Chamber, $50,000. They got $50,000 for marketing and outreach. Number 7 was Equity Alliance. Their proposals had a little about technical assistance, not as strong as the others based on the ranking. And so we gave them $150 out of half of their request, basically. So they do a little technical assistance and a lot of marketing and outreach. Number 8 was Jump at $195. Not very strong on technical assistance, but very strong on marketing and outreach. They got $50,000. Number 9, Bordeaux Business Coalition, not very strong on technical assistance, but stronger on marketing and outreach. They got $50,000, a cap of marketing and outreach. Number 10 being the Southeast Center. Ironically, they didn't put a number into their proposal, but their proposal is pretty good for marketing and outreach.
Director Pogue, on the organizations that are getting both, or that are providing both services, is there still a cap of 50 on the marketing and outreach? So if you've got, I think you said a couple of them are doing both. If they're getting, I don't know if TLACC is doing both, but if they're doing both, is there a cap of 50 and the rest of it is technical assistance?
Could be a cap of 50, but they're doing all 3, technical assistance, marketing, and outreach. So they asked for $210 to provide services. we agreed with their proposal to provide services for technical assistance and marketing and outreach. It was a cap of $500,000 to do all three.
Yeah, I think a little bit along the lines of what Councilwoman Johnston was saying. I think marketing/outreach is, I think because it's a little nebulous, we count it as one thing and that the cap is 50. Because I think the idea that if somebody's doing technical assistance and marketing and outreach and they have 250,000, we don't want 200,000 of that to be marketing and outreach and 50 to be technical assistance.
Well, I think they all spelled it out in proposals of what they can do for technical assistance. They did allocate a certain number for technical assistance. I think for TLAC, it was actually 160. Actually, look right here. So there's a number set aside for technical assistance and a number set aside for marketing and outreach. So if they're doing all three or services,
I think it's really 2.
so yes, there was a number set aside with the proposal for personnel, marketing programs, $29,000, events, staff to provide technical assistance, contracts for outreach and web design, technology, and indirect costs. And that entails $210,000.
So just to clarify, the scoring, when the scoring was done, was it scoring everyone based on an assumption that they applied to do all of the different functions? Because if you look at it, it sort of would suggest that a 60 would be a low score. And so maybe that wouldn't, you might want to give money to someone that got an 80. But it sounds like what you're saying is the scores include all of the different components. And if some organizations would not be strong on certain aspects of it, they might be very strong on marketing. And I guess I'm just trying to get an understanding of that.
Well, looking at the scores, we did look at proposals came in to provide all three services. And so once we did our scoring and looked at the actual applications, we then looked at what organizations can provide all three services, and then looking at what organizations were stronger in providing either technical assistance or marketing and outreach. So the lower score organizations were stronger in providing marketing and outreach. I think for what we saw in the last program of getting the word out, we want to make sure we have a number of organizations getting the word out, not just relying upon 3 or 4 organizations. Here we have 10. So that's why we have 10 organizations, but to make sure they're getting the word out about this program. And they all kind of spelled out what they can do in providing goals and metrics, but also how they're going to provide the data back to us as far as responding for how many business owners are going to reach, when they're going to reach the business owners, how they're going to reach the business owners. So that's all been spelled out in the proposals.
Along with my colleagues, I've been able to glance through the proposals. I haven't been able to study them, but I guess one other question I had is your sense from talking to these groups that they have standing resources that have experience in doing what they're proposing, or are they going to have to go out and outsource it? Do you have a sense of that?
I think based on the proposals they submitted, that's how we scored them. So we looked at the personnel, the application, the personnel they have on staff, the structured proposals. Those who didn't have the resources or expertise of doing this, they scored lower. Those who had the expertise internally, had the staffing and the capital and the resources, they scored higher. So that's what gave us a sense of their capabilities of performing this opportunity.
I've got Sean and then Councilmember Gamble, and I think I saw Vonda, so.
So Dr. Pogue, thanks for putting this together, making it so easy to read. I might have missed this in the summary, but we're recommending 10 groups, to get the word out, technical assistance. How many groups sent in a proposal?
10.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Councilwoman Gamble?
Thank you. Just a little bit of clarification, I guess, is what I'm asking for. I share Jose's concerns about duplication of marketing and outreach. I think some of that may be addressed in the reduction with the cap of the marketing. And I'm wondering if we need to emphasize to the organizations that that the desire of the committee is to see more one-on-one public meetings and informational type outreach and marketing as opposed to radio ads and that kind of thing, so that we don't have that duplication of media advertising, using the dollars for media advertising. So is that something that, you know, I'm not sure if we're ready to make a recommendation today on this proposal based on the information that we have, but if we're not going to do that, and that's at the will of the body, can we have some of the suggestions or questions that were asked today be addressed with the organizations either through Director Pogue's office or them coming in at a later date, possibly within this month, because I know we're trying to start this program by April 1. So we would look at having another meeting in a week or two to get these answers, questions answered, and to be more specific about the marketing and outreach so that we don't have duplication. I guess I'm asking if we can, I guess, make a decision today as to if we're ready to make a recommendation or vote based on the information that we have today, or if we can kind of get a list of the questions and concerns about that have been asked today, get answers to those either in written form through Director Pogue's office or in having the organizations come to address us.
Okay. And let me go to Vonda McDaniel, because I think she had something similar. At least the head nodding was.
I just want to say thank you for the detailed report that you put out. We've had a lot of kind of back and forth on marketing, and the scope and breadth of the organizations, it appears, that have been chosen. There's a bit of overlap in terms of the communities that they speak to. But in order to make up for perhaps some of the gaps that we've seen previously, I think that overlap is appropriate and appreciated. My question does relate to the 3 areas. So if I submitted a proposal that addressed all 3 areas, then in terms of scoring, that most of those organizations get 80, 90, and then the ones that receive 70 perhaps addressed only 1 or 2 of the areas, and one that addressed only 1. Perhaps those are the ones that we see that are 60, 70. Is that kind of the rationale for?
Those organizations that scored higher kind of spelled out how they perform technical assistance, providing accounting services, helping out one-on-one consulting services, number of hours and personnel dedicated to providing one-on-one services. Those organizations scored very high. Organizations didn't spell it out very well, they scored lower. Now, I would love to fund all these organizations. I mean, that's $3.2 million. We only have $2 million here. So we have to make a decision about how we can set aside these funds to support these organizations, to support an $18 million program and getting the word out and providing technical assistance to communities that have been historically underserved. So I think in forming this program and getting these 10 proposals in, which haven't been done before, what I'm understanding, it's just something totally different structure, providing 10 nonprofits to come to the table to really provide services to our underserved communities here in Nashville. I think we saw from the data points, both internally but also externally, that there's a need. And we have organizations coming to the table historically have not been brought to the table. This is different. Like I said, we have $3.2 million of requests, but only $2 million. And so a decision has to be made based upon scoring and how we can set aside dollars to get vendors to help support the overall program with Pathway of $18 million in supporting our small businesses here in Nashville.
Yep. So I've got Councilmember Johnston. Let me go back to just address Councilman Gamble. I don't know if this solves the desire to make sure we don't have a lot of duplication, but I believe we've always thought of this as two buckets. You have technical assistance and you have marketing/outreach. I wouldn't say it's three items. If we have a nonprofit organization who has been awarded funds in excess of $50,000 because they are providing both technical assistance and marketing and outreach, if within those contracts it limits marketing and outreach to $50,000, does that address some of the concerns so that we don't have an organization that is getting in excess of 50 and spends a disproportionate amount of that award on marketing and outreach versus technical assistance? And if that helps progress today, that's one thing we could lay out in the resolution that would then address that, but I'm not pushing. Okay, so Councilmember Gamble and then Jose. I'm sorry, Johnston. Sorry.
Thank you. The $125,000 that was left over, I'm wondering if the best use of that is to sort of hold that back and see how this goes with the initial allocations, and then when a group or multiple groups are showing really good effectiveness and more need, to sort of supplement from that. Was that your original thought, or?
I'll leave it to the will of the body.
Okay, that's my will.
There it is.
There you go.
Jose?
Yeah, I like your idea, Mary Jo. I think if trying to capture the spirit of the comments that have been made is certainly around the limiting, the really honing in on this notion of what is included in marketing. And so instead of, and I think this is what you're saying, instead of just taking this proposed budgets and then that becomes part of the contract, there might be some back and forth with the organization saying, regardless, because I appreciate that, and I don't even remember exactly what ours looked like, but if you lumped everything into one program, we're going to request that you recast your budgets and separate them clearly into two, and then evaluate the merits of your proposal based on what you can do, and that might be an opportunity to hone in and address.
Within our grant contracts, there's a required spending plan, and we can require that to be split between marketing and technical outreach.
And make it very clear. I think it would be appropriate, and none of these organizations would be offended or pushed back or anything, saying, all right, the will of the committee is precisely that, because there's a possibility of duplication. There is a argument for for the merit of some duplication, because we want to get there. But I do share the concern. To use any of these vendors should not be that would be an inefficient use of these funds. That some of these vendors get 3 calls from different organizations saying, hey, let's launch an outreach campaign. That's. And again, I realize that I'm conflicted by that, but these are public funds that need to be spent efficiently.
And just to be on the record, your proposal, Connexion's proposal does spell that out. So it does say marketing, outreach, and technical assistance. So in hours and staff time allocated. So Connexion's proposal scored very well. Those proposals that scored very well spelled it out. Those proposals that didn't score very well didn't spell it out.
Okay, Councilmember Gamble?
I agree. Your comment, Mayor Joe, about how to specify that only 50,000 would be allowed for marketing and outreach would help delineate what the organizations that are getting more, make sure that they are in that, staying within that realm. And as I said earlier, I think that would help diminish some of that duplication. And so if we can include that in the resolution, as well as making sure that the organizations that have applied and that we are approving today include in their proposals, if they haven't already, the breakdown of spending as well as the expected outcomes for that. And if we can do that, then I would make a motion that we move to approve the recommendations as submitted by Director. And adding in that application, or in the, I guess, what do you call that? A survey.
Yeah, and I think that'll be part of
Right.
pathways, because we'll
Right.
require pathway then. Every time they have somebody come apply, where did you hear about us?
Right,
Absolutely.
right.
We will
Any-
add all that in, yes. Yes.
Any
there'll
other
be-
questions or comments? We have a motion properly seconded for $1,870,000, I just said that wrong, $1,874,960 to 10 different nonprofits in support of marketing and outreach and technical assistance. We have talked about that the resolution will include the reporting requirements, very similar to our previous legislation that required demographics, how many businesses served. This time it will be specifically outlined when we say businesses served, difference between marketing/outreach versus technical assistance. Those that are receiving funding in excess of 50 will be capped, just like our other nonprofits, at 50 for marketing and outreach. And we will make sure we discuss with, it's separate, but with Pathway. So,
Speak to the balance of the 2 million, I think.
yes, that would still be available under the original resolution. So if a nonprofit expended all their funds and still had a pipeline of businesses to serve, we would welcome them to come back and ask for more.
But I'd like to address that
Okay. All right, so under those terms, Alex and I will get all of that in the resolution. All in favor? Anybody opposed? And we have 2 abstentions. So we have 5 in favor, 0 against, 2 abstentions. Excellent, thank you all.
Thank you.
And then can I get one of our council members to be the sponsor? Thank you, Gamble, and then we'll make sure that it's all in there. And if you want to, do you just want to automatically be on it also? Yes. Okay. Perfect, thank you.
I'll work with Alex. Thank you.
Let's see, Alex, do you need a sponsor for the first music? I'll do that. Okay, we'll do that. All right, and to our patient guests in back, our next item on the agenda is a follow-up to our access to childcare. So we welcome back representatives from the Rafah Institute and to United Way. You all have that proposal. I need to pull it to the top of my stack. Got it. Okay. If you all want to give us just a quick refresher and let us know the details of the proposal.
Good afternoon to everyone. Thank you so much once again for allowing us to be here in this space with you, and also thank you for your consideration of our proposal all the way to this point, and also thank you for hearing from us again. I also want to take a moment just to, just for the record, if that's what there is one, to just give appreciation to the work that's happened in this city over the years around early learning and early childhood education, and just the challenges associated with that. All those who've been engaged in that work. We are offering a set of solutions that's centered around center-based childcare and home-based childcare, right, as a tandem force to address what is a huge need. But we want to articulate that that what we're offering isn't the whole answer. It's not going to solve everything. What we'll do here is not everything that needs to be done, right? There's so much more work to do, and there is room for more. The money that we are asking for is not gonna solve it all. So I just want to say that and articulate just the need for more. Our task today, I think, is really to come before you with some numbers, with some dollars and cents, and to articulate specifically, how those funds will be used. Pri is going to share with you from the United Way's focus on center-based space. I'll share with you from Rafah Institute's home-based focus, and I'm tossing it to Pri.
Thank you, Travis. And because we have maybe one or two faces in the room that were not here last time, I'll just do a quick introduction. So, Apri Gasaway, I'm the Director of Education at United Way of Greater Nashville. Do you want me to introduce you?
I'm Travis Claybrook, CEO at Rafah Institute.
And?
I'm Mycha Johnson.
The mic.
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
I'm Mycha Johnson. I'm the Program Director for Early Embrace.
All right. Okay, so I echo what Travis mentioned. Thank you again for having us before you today. And United Way and Rafah are submitting a joint proposal. And we are titling this proposal The Future of Child Care in Nashville, Local Child Care Stabilization Resources Program. So the program really is designed to deploy stabilization resources to center-based child care providers, home-based child care providers in areas of highest need, while also leveraging these funds to support capacity building, to resource professional facilitation, research and evaluation, marketing, communications, advocacy, expertise, all the things that we know we need as we're thinking about standing up an industry that is in need of support, which is the childcare industry. So what we have built into the proposal for center-based care, we are looking to stabilize up to 12 center-based childcare providers, 10 of which are part of the United Way's Read to Succeed network of centers, and 2 additional centers that we would like to bring into that community of providers, with a focus on those 2 additional centers, with a focus on those centers serving a percentage of or population of Hispanic and Latino families, which when we look at the 10 network of Read to Succeed centers currently, there is not a widespread or significant population of Hispanic Latino families served, and we want to change that. So the focus on the 2 additional centers that we would be adding to that network would ideally be serving a larger population of Hispanic Latino families. So that is the focus of the center-based child care stabilization resources part of the proposal. I'd also just add to put a pin or a stamp in the true purpose in it is to incentivize centers to serve more children and families that come from lower income communities, right? Because currently there is no incentive for child care providers to serve those families. It's actually an expense. So part of that, those stabilization resources would be to stabilize, neutralize the gap, if you will, the expense that centers have to carry every year. And if you look in the proposal, just looking at the 10 Read to Succeed centers that we partner with, on an annual basis, the cost that they have to absorb is $2.6 million annually, right? And so we want to neutralize that so that they can serve more children and families, or at the very least, so that it is not a barrier in their ability to serve them. So that's the center-based side of things, and I'll pass it back to Travis to talk about the home-based side of things, and we'll circle back to talking about the capacity building.
Mike.
Sorry, that's right.
The 2.6 that's absorbed, is that among the 10, or is that among, because you were going to add 2 more? So is that the 12, or is that just the 10?
That is the 10.
Okay.
So specifically on the home-based side, over the next 2 years, we want to pilot recruiting and resourcing 30 to 50 home-based providers serving families that are living in economically isolated communities, many of which are on MDHA or HUD properties here in Davidson County. And if we imagine that each one of those providers would be engaging with 6 to 10 young people, we're thinking this is impacting something on the order of 300 kids over the next 2 years. That is a massive impact. That would be an amazing impact. And we want to resource those providers in 3 primary ways. First, we want to think about what does it look like for business startups / business expansion funding for emerging and practicing childcare entrepreneurs. And we want to invest $160,000. So we're thinking something on the order of $4,000 per provider, just for startup. If I'm wanting to get into it, COVID has hit. I lost my job. It's way cheaper for me to stay at home and keep my kids. I might as well keep a few more kids. I want to get into the game, right? I can start a business, right? What is the second area or space that we want to engage with support is coaching in 3 areas. Business coaching. What does it look like for me to not just have a business, but for me to have a sustainable, stable business for the long term? What does it look like for me to provide high quality early education? So there's pedagogical coaching. And then what does it look like for me to get on a pathway to licensure, right, with DHS? And the third space, and we want to invest $600,000 in that space. That is bringing in the experts, we've already hired them, the experts in pedagogical coaching and business coaching in the early education landscape and the licensure coaching to do that. And to do that in a culturally competent way for the communities that we serve. And then finally, basic income support. We want to invest $360,000. This is around $750 a month. What does it look like to say, this is how much it costs for me to run my business just to break even? Here's the space where people can actually pay. What does it look like for me to close that gap? Can I get support to close that gap? So I'm not worried whether I can pay rent to keep my place where I'm having my business, or to keep my lights on, or to keep my water on. So those are the 3 primary areas that we want to provide significant investment. And then finally, we want to schedule $100,000 in administrative support and back-end administrative support and outreach, right? $70,000 of which goes to what does it look like for the accounting piece and for HR and for insurance and for IT support and so forth, right? $30,000 that we would take for deep outreach and recruiting participants, right? We also want to take $40,000 for program-related supplies. For example, we would love to establish a lending library where we have, where providers can come in and borrow and have loaned out to them resources for their center. And then we want to take another $60,000 to build out a robust data collection and research process in collaboration with our partners at UT Knoxville and their social work program, right? And this is talking about designing a database or purchasing one if it already exists to collect data, designing and deploying those data collection instruments, administering the database, and then turning that information into very useful data. What's the sum total of that? We're looking at $1.32 million that we're asking for, and that may not connect with you, but I want you to think about it in these terms. That breaks down to about $2,200 per child per year. That's about $185 a month. And in child care tuition terms, that's like $42 a week. That is a tiny, if I said to you, you can get high quality education, the highest quality education in the city for $42 a week, and by the way, it's right down the street from you. Yeah, you'd have a waiting list a mile long. That is a very tiny investment, relatively small investment that has the potential for massive returns in terms of pouring into young children who historically have been the least likely to access it. This would be a game changer and a quite inexpensive one. So we're trusting that you would support this at this level. I'm tossing it back to Apri.
Thank you, Travis. Well said. So we'll shift to capacity building grant. Okay, so this part of the proposal really is to support the work in convening cross-sector groups to build a birth through age 8 plan for the county. Some of you have probably been around for a while and have heard different efforts that have come along the way to really have these conversations and build a plan. And part of the reality is that we need to revisit some of those conversations. We need to revisit some of those plans that have been developed in years past. Some strategies, probably many of those strategies, are still relevant today. However, there isn't yet, or United Way has recently stepped into that space to serve as the backbone or convener of these cross-sector groups to ensure that the flame stays lit. Right. And so this is what the capacity building piece of this proposal is to do just that. It's to revisit what has already been discussed in a plan that has already been built, plans for that matter, and figure out what needs to be tweaked, what needs to be nixed, what needs to be scaled, what needs to be better understood as we think about childcare in Davidson County. So we are asking for funding to support consulting fees and just the R&D, overall R&D part of that process, which is $150,000. And I'm going to pause there.
Yeah, I think we'll open it up to questions.
Perfect.
Councilwoman Johnston. Oh, sorry, saw your hand first. Gamble's next.
So I'm looking at so just to make sure I'm understanding properly, the stabilization resources is the difference between what the money they're receiving and that gap of what the true cost, correct? So that is just money to make sure that they are covering their costs. Okay. And so then, one question. So at the very top, you have grant administration of $270,000, but then grant administration is also a line item under the home-based childcare for $70,000. Is that a duplication?
No, separate. So for clarification, at the very bottom of the proposal, we've broken it out by, we will essentially have two fiscal agents, if you will. So the Rafah Institute will be managing a pot of the investment, as well as United Way. And so the grant administration fees for Rafah are listed under the home-based budget line items, and then the 270 under United Way.
Okay. Under the home-based childcare with Rafah, so the $600,000, which is $300,000 per year for coaching staff, for a multitude of things. So, teaching, coaching, business coaching, all licensure coaching, all that fun stuff. Who is actually receiving that money to perform those services?
So, or do you want to answer that? You want me to answer that?
And the reason I'm asking is because it's the vast majority. It represents almost half of the allocation for the 2 years, so it's quite large.
That funding is going to go directly to the professionals that we have hired at Early Embrace to deliver those services.
So the allocation will be through RFA to Early Embrace.
Correct.
Keeping in mind that Early Embrace is a program of RFA Institute, so those are one and the same.
Yes.
Okay.
So is it outside consultants or is it current staff?
Their staff.
So it's current staff?
Yes.
Okay. And then research and development, can you go further into that? Because that's a line item that both of these, what is going on with the feedback? Sorry. The research and development is on a line item of both. So just, if you can just go further into what exactly that entails. What are we researching and developing?
Yeah, so from the home-based perspective, we're looking at building out our research component. What is it that we want to truly measure, right? How are we going to get at that? That's a piece that still really needs designing. We want to include those providers as well as the families of the children that will be served in that process. So we are not coming into the space saying, here is what exact success looks like for you, provider, but let's design together what success looks like. Now, there are some pieces that we are coming in and saying, in general, here are some impacts and outcomes that we certainly want to have. But there is, participatory action research is really what we want to get into, and our partner at UT is very much interested in engaging this space, and so. I know that's not a lot of specificity, and the reason that there's not is because there isn't.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, I appreciate that. So I just want, and I said this before in the previous meeting about how important it is. I mean, a chunk of this money is supplementing a loss financially, a fiscal note to these centers and to these home-based child care facilities. And what I don't want to happen is to fund this for 2 years and then it go away. And so I don't know who you're speaking with at the state level and how we're what metrics are we using to justify this additional funding? Because my hope and prayer would be that we show that this is unbelievably effective and useful to our community as a whole. Because that trickles down, then it allows mom to get a job and, X, Y, all the things. And so for the state to step up and increase their funding, and what it looks like to me is that the child care-based centers are running at a deficit on average of about $260,000 a year based on their current capacity. Is that what you think? That's correct. Okay.
That's about right. Yep.
Okay. And so obviously, it's going to be a decent fiscal note. I don't deal with the state's budget, thank God, but I would hope that we would be able to fit that in. And are you in communication with those folks so that they're at least aware of it and we don't come 2 years later and go, oh, but hey, look what we've been doing. And they go, what?
Yeah, we are having, RFA Institute is having those conversations with the governor's office.
Perfect.
And to a point that you're making, part of this, yes, is let's make up the difference. But part of this is also let us rethink that whole economic model around early learning, and that's a new thing. So the value of piloting this is to say, all right, first of all, does it work? We think it does. Let's demonstrate that, and as we're doing that, and what this funding does is to help us do that. And then we can curate the success of this as a frame, as a model to our own city, to our state, and then not only can we incorporate that into regular funding from the state, from the city, but we, Memphis and Chattanooga and Knoxville and all places in between can look at it and say, yeah, this is a way forward.
Yeah, and I know we're looking right now a lot at the Hispanic population, but I think as we all know, we have low-income Black families, we have low-income white families, and so this is a great starting point because the Hispanic community is historically underserved. But I definitely want to make sure that we're looking at this as 100% of a pilot and not a pilot from an ethnicity perspective, but a pilot on a child perspective, period, regardless of your race or ethnicity.
Yeah. I'd also add, oh, I thought you signaled. Okay. I'd also add to what Travis was saying, or add on to what he was saying, in that the $40,000 that we are requesting in R&D for the child or center-based childcare work, that is really to understand just that, right? Like, what were centers able to do above and beyond what they could have done had those funds not been there? Also, in the capacity building grant or funding, that will allow us, the cross-sector work that we're doing or convening that we are doing in partnership with Tennesseans for Quality Early Education, that's a statewide effort, right? So there are communities, Travis mentioned Chattanooga, Memphis. There are 6 communities across the state, Nashville, Davidson County being one of them, that are building localized plans, birth through age 8 plans for their communities, not only to impact their communities, but to be rolled up into a statewide plan that can be taken to our state level officials, but also to speak into policy changes that really need to be brought down for the childcare industry in and of itself. But also Travis mentioned, when we think of the K-12 system and our per pupil costs, right? We don't have that same formula for early childcare. We need that, right? And part of why this deficit lingers, right, for childcare centers is because everyone is developing their own formula for what high quality childcare looks like and costs. We've got to revisit that, right? So if we want this to work not only on a local level, we got to make it work on a state level as well.
And if I could just speak to one thing you talked about, catching the bottom of the barrel, we are building this, and I like to use as the metaphor the wheelchair ramp that was designed for the most marginalized. I can't get up the stairs. I'm using the wheelchair ramp. But how many people have used the wheelchair ramp to haul their luggage, right? The tide rose for everybody when we built it for the least, right? And that's the way we're designing this. We're thinking about how do we catch those who are the most marginalized, who are always left out, who are at the bottom of the barrel, on the edge of the edge. If we can build it and it catches them, we believe that it is going to solve it for everybody else, regardless of what community you're in, what race you're in, what color you are, whatever.
Councilwoman Sepulveda, you've had your hand up. And then Campbell.
You want to go?
No, you're
Okay.
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Thank you, and thank you for coming before us again today. I had a question. The 10 centers that were identified, where are they located? Like the majority, I know I have listened to your presentation maybe 2-3 times. And I remember you all speaking specifically to childcare deserts, specifically in North Nashville being one of the places with the least amount of childcare options. So just so we have an idea, these 10 centers that were identified, where are they located?
Yeah. So they're kind of a little bit all over. I would say a cluster of them, probably about 4 out of the 10 are right in center Davidson County. Then we have some offshoots in northeast, southwest, But we can provide a map. I have a visual of exactly where our RTS centers are located that I can share as a follow-up to this presentation.
I mean,
I'd be happy to share that.
That would be great to know, and hopefully the two centers that are identified later on by the groups you named, hopefully at least one of them can be in Southeast, because Southeast does have the largest Hispanic population. So I do appreciate that. And I do appreciate the strategically targeting of marginalized communities. Just based on the research you had presented to us before, it does seem like these communities have the hardest time finding child care resources. My other question is regarding the 30 to 50 home-based child care providers. Would you specifically be targeting areas of town where these child care deserts are? And would other criteria go into that? So ethnicity as well, religion, all of that, or, when I say religion, I mean like making sure that we target the Muslim community. We have the largest Kurdish population, so I don't know if that could be another community that we reach out to.
Yeah, so a bit of transparency. Rafa Institute has been built around focusing on economically isolated communities that mostly are Black folk. That's kind of how we've built ourselves. But recognizing that it's not just Black folk, right? I regret not including in the black and white of this proposal some ideas that we've had around both the Kumanji Kurd population as well as the Latin community. But I do have a number. $503,000 gets us. We would love to hire 2 grassroots organizers for both of those communities, 2 each. And we'd also like to hire a coach from the Latin community and a coach from the Kurdish community who could also do that work, lead that work in those communities. It's not built here, but if it's the pleasure of the committee to add that to that 1.32 million, we are ready to step forward with that. You're saying it's the 503,000.
Well, I would say go for it. But that's just me. That's just me. I mean, I would say, funny enough, I was speaking to a group of domestic workers yesterday, which included nannies. So I'd love to connect you all with them. That'd be a great resource. I think we do have temporary funds here just with ARP. But I know that I, as a council member, would like to see this funded in some way in our budget in the future. So I will personally make that commitment to push for this to be a priority later on, seeing as this was one of the top asks from the survey. But that's only what we can do. It's going to be up to the administration and the council whenever we do the final vote.
And we are, to Councilmember Johnston's point earlier, I always ask the question, compared to what? There is the potential that we are creating a cliff for ourselves. But I say to myself, compared to what? Compared to what we already have, can we keep doing just what we've been doing to avoid the cliff? No, I think we take the risk. I think we go for it. And yes, and then if we can make it work, we curate it back to the city and to the state and private funders to continue to support it. So thank you for that.
Okay, I've got Councilman Gamble, and I have Sean Henry, and then I have Councilman Johnston.
Thank you all again for this very comprehensive report and information that you've provided in addressing the lack of access to childcare in our city. As has been stated earlier, this was one of the top 3 priorities that the survey provided that is of utmost importance to the community. I had a question about, well, first of all, I want to say that because of that highest priority, I think that our decision to consider recommendation of funding this request is important and outweighs the concern about sustainability. Although I believe that what's been stated, and I agree, that starting this program helps leverage the dollars so that, and leverage this program so that operators are able to build capacity and their ability to get state funding and federal funding moving forward after this 2-year period. So even if we aren't able to fund this to the capacity here locally, this helps strengthen those operators so that they can go individually and get those state and federal dollars. Just one, I don't have anything other to add, except for I agree with Sepulveda on adding that 500,000 to address the immigrant population.
503.
503,000. Thank you for coming prepared with that number to address that population. And also if Pri can speak to some of your capacity building partners, because I think that is important as well in looking at sustainability moving forward. And if you could just tell us, maybe not the whole list, but just a few of the community partners that you're working with that are also helpful in this space.
Yes, happy to. So a couple of layers to that. So obviously the work is, this kind of statewide effort is being powered by TQEE. So that is a major partner, Tennesseans for Quality Early Education. And so we are walking shoulder to shoulder with them to ensure alignment across the state, right? Because they're leading that work, and we want to make sure we're learning from other communities around the state and vice versa. So that's one major partner. We're also partnering with a consultant to help us stand these working groups up. Transform Consulting Group is the name of that partner. So that's kind of the backbone team, if you will, internal capacity. And then we are partnering with, and I'll just run down a list of organizations that we're working with, cross-sector in nature, philanthropic, government, nonprofit, community-based organizations, specifically, and I'll talk about the specific partners we're working with for the 2 additional sites we hope to identify and partner with: the Hispanic Family Foundation, Conexión, the Hispanic Chamber, for a number of reasons. That community on the center-based side of things, that is not typically the type of care that that community is interested in or prefers. Culturally, home-based care is the preference. The person in the neighborhood, grandmother, friend of the whole community, abuela, she stands in and keeps all the children. It eliminates a lot of barriers like work hours, the long work hours, 12-hour work hours, so they don't have to worry about open and closing times, right? It's just, I'll go back to abuela's house and retrieve the kids, right? So part of what our charge will and challenge will be, quite frankly, in partnership with these organizations and more that I did not name, will be to identify and really walk out how to create in the right locations and identify these center-based or these centers that we can begin to build trust, bridges, connections, within the organizations that these communities have found and built trust. So I'll just name the Hispanic Family Foundation as an example. Some of their largest events can cap out at 15,000 people. On the lower end, 200 to 400, right? Of course, that would be an obvious partner of ours. They know their community. And so that's kind of our strategy for the additional 2 centers. As it relates to building the birth through Age 8 plan itself, we're partnering with organizations at the state level. Let me just look at the list. So, okay. So we have health components or higher education institutions, Vanderbilt, Meharry, Belmont. So the higher ed space is there. One, they're bringing their research-based perspective to the conversation, but also through the lens of preparatory programs, teacher preparation programs, right? And how was that connection there, right? So as we're thinking about high quality, how are we staffing these centers and who are we staffing them with? We have nonprofit organizations, Salama Urban Ministry, Equity Alliance, Martha O'Brien. We have other entities, state level, Metro Action Commission, Tennessee Commission on Children and Youth. So it's a broad group of folks, and I am more than happy. We have like 4 tabs worth of organizations listed, so I'm like cherry picking, but happy to share that information with council so you can know exactly who we're in conversation with currently, but also who we will continue to be in conversation with as the work grows and we're more informed about who is perhaps missing at these tables that should be involved.
Thanks for the enthusiasm. It's pretty exciting, when you're talking about changing the whole landscape, what we're doing, how we're doing it for the kids that need it the most. But as this is a 2-year pilot, there's no doubt the first year it's going to be really successful. Are we built to grow it from the first year to the second year? It doesn't seem like we are. It seems like it's a fixed number of children or access to it. Should we be looking at slightly more dollars or start looking at the second round of requests for funding in the future? Because I know the city and the state's going to take care of the future budget, but it sounds like the second year, there should be a step up off the success of the first year. Are we not planning for that? Or is it built into that 30 to 50 home centers, 10 to 12? So we are planning for growth from year 1 to year 2 with these numbers?
Yeah, in the center-based budget, we have built in funding to support. Every center may not be able to expand in their current facility, right? But for centers that are perhaps able to, we have built in a level of funding to support that, right? So if perhaps I am a center that is licensed or has the capacity to serve 90 children, but I'm only serving 75 for a number of reasons, right? Because it would cost me more to bring in more children, so I just cap it at 75, right? By eliminating that barrier, there is no barrier now, right? You can serve 90, right? Because you're not, by serving the additional children and families, bringing about more expenses that you have to find funding for.
All right, thanks. And we did change the numbers, 7,519,000. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yes, that's the other 3,000. We got that. 19, got it.
So I just formally wanted to make the motion to increase this funding to the 503,000 to specific. Via that, yeah, sorry, to handle the Kurdish and Hispanic specific home-based childcare. So that would move this to $7,519,000, and I'd move to approve.
Second. I have a second. Are there any other questions? Go ahead, Jose.
It really is not a question, so I'm probably out of order now, but it's really just a comment. And I'll try to think of a question as I'm talking here. Give me 30 seconds. I just want to reiterate what I said last time, that this is one of the most compelling presentations that we've heard. And kind of jokingly, Travis, I'm thinking, man, you would be great at Shark Tank. You're standing up and pitching your idea. You would get no pushback. But what really resonates with me is this that entrepreneurial the development of the entrepreneurial mindset. So you're working in the, in the micro enterprise development space, and one of the most important tools for success in that space, and that's what you're alluding to, is like changing the mindset of the individual from going to, I'm just someone, abuela, I take care of kids. I have this conversation in the domestic service worker space. Like, it's not like, what do you do? I clean houses. No. You own a company that is in the janitorial space. And it's like developing the language, the narrative, and changing people's mindset in this microenterprise is the most important thing that I think you're doing, at least the one that excites me the most. So I commend you for it. I look forward to really hearing the success and how this develops, because again, and maybe it's just the way you're pitching it, but it is really exciting.
Go ahead. Since you didn't ask a question, I'll give you one. We're talking about research and impact. What drives Rafa Institute is healing communities. And so while this is on a practical level, solving a problem, you are capturing this community healing aspect. I have been economically isolated. I've been geographically isolated. I've been socially isolated. Every part of my life for generations has been isolated. This is suddenly restoring power, psychological power, and then that begins to motivate all kinds of change. If I can do this, then I can do that, then I can do that. Suddenly, it's a whole new world, not just for a caregiver or for a provider, but for a child, because they're building that into them. What drove us to the early learning space was we were working with 12, 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old kids who've come into the criminal legal system who this started when they were 2 months in utero, shifting the whole psychological and emotional narrative in these communities. And guess what? Man, that is a huge return. How much does it cost to arrest, prosecute, incarcerate, and surveil somebody from age 13 to 33, right? This is way cheaper, $42 a week. It's way cheaper, and we get a huge return on it.
All right, I had a motion. Did you, Councilwoman Sepulveda? You ready to vote? Okay. So we had a motion. Again, this is for $7,519,000. You have the separate amounts. It will be 2 different contracts with United Way and Rafa Institute for the pilot program, increasing access to childcare. We had a motion, properly second. No more questions. All in favor? I have 7 in favor, 0 against. I assume. Yes, Councilwoman Sepulveda will sponsor it. Okay, thank you to our guests. I do have a couple other items, so committee is not released. Although, Sean, yes, thank you. Thank you, guys. All right, just a couple other things for the committee. So based on today's recommendations, so let me go before. So we had about roughly $12.7 million of the first round of funding that was available for appropriation. Specifically, we had $12,668,050 remaining to be appropriated. We had our $260,000 for the music venue study, $7,519,000 with our child care leaves us $4,889,050. So that's where we're at. Looking at, again, the community survey, I wanted to thank Councilwoman Swahara has been reaching out. It was one of the items, again, one of our top items that has had 0 funding. We've talked about different immigration support services, but more specifically, legal aid, legal services, accessing some of the resources that are already out there. And so we have nonprofit partners that have been approached. I've received some requests to say, hey, can we present if I had $1 for every time, can I get on the agenda? So you can tell agenda space is pretty valuable. I try to make sure we bring those all to you kind of packaged in a way that makes sense, like we've been doing. So I really think that's going to be kind of our next work, is looking at the other item. We have provided some funding to homelessness, but again, that was number 2 on the list. I think the funding that we did was very specific. Some of it was related. So those are some of the items that are forthcoming. Sounds like this is on topic, Councilwoman Sepulveda.
It is. I was at the Homelessness Planning Council earlier today, and which the possibility of coming back before the ARP committee was brought up.
Yes, and again, with the community survey results, we expected to have another kind of conversation on that. Now, it's somewhat limited by the dollars we have left to appropriate. In the arena of, I don't get to share all the good news. I did get an email today. It is from the Tennessee Municipal League. The notice was some ARP funds are likely to be rescinded. So, yes, now that I have everybody's attention. I already did, I'm just teasing. I just got the looks. So as a result of the federal, I'm just going to read. As a result of the federal budget negotiations taking place between congressional leaders and the White House, the SLFRF funds, which is our funds that we're using, will be used to offset supplemental funding, may be used to offset supplemental funding that the White House has requested for the next phase of COVID response, as well as to help fund humanitarian aid to the people of Ukraine. So the letter that has been sent by 35 GOP senators wrote to the White House asking for more oversight and clarity into the previously authorized pandemic aid. So our current SLFRF, remember, we're getting in 2 payments. Always at risk was that second payment. We felt very reassured it was coming, maybe not as reassured at this moment. There is as part of the agreement, Congress is structuring the rescission so that they are first made from the states, then territories, tribal governments, and then local and county governments. So I guess if the funding is rescinded, it will first come in that order, and if there's enough funding rescinded, maybe we're not impacted. We don't know. I guess it's just all the more reason. I have had a couple questions of, well, can we just appropriate all $260 million? I think we're pretty clear why we're not going to do that. So we've always kind of said we can only appropriate funds that we have. While we felt they were pretty, assured, this is a perfect example of why we really should only appropriate this last $4.9 million that we have. Again, the timing is that we were told we would receive the second round a year after the first payment. Because we're a merged city-county government, we actually got our payments in 2. One came in June, one came in July. So I really think June was the original intended payment for all of it. It just got a little confusing with our merged county city government. So I would expect we will have the other $130 million if we still receive it all in full next June. So that's not actually that far away. We have April and May really as our next meetings, and we really will be focusing on those 2 items we talked about. One other item that we do need to appropriate and incorporate is the admin. I know that's not like the most exciting piece of the work, but for Metro, there are certain admin fees. We still are looking at consultants. That's one other thing I'll bring to you in the second tranche now, which is there's years and years of reporting. We want to make sure we don't have any risk and clawback. So there are other administration type expenses. They're available up to 10%. We're recommending probably 1%, so we would go 1% in each tranche. That should cover it for us. The other item we're watching, and again, I know I introduced Wade last time, but Wade McManus has really been invaluable as we watch more of the spending. I also want to give props to the OMB team, because now we've set this up. These are much longer term funds than we had with CARES Act. Everything else was spent very fast. the appropriations that we're making sometimes will take 3, 4, 5 years to spend. So somebody's got to track all of that to make sure a department just doesn't overspend, or why aren't we spending anything? So kind of both ways. So Wade's really helping in that. So we'll track this last 4.9 that we have. We'll probably get right up to where the new amount comes in. And the only other thing I want to talk about from a reporting perspective, we will continue to give you the reports, and they're posted on our website also for full transparency. When we submit reports to Treasury, that's all going to be seen by you all, by the public. But we do participate in weekly calls with GFOA, so Government Finance Officers Association, GFOA. We are learning more and more that most cities with significant funding are reporting all of their expenses under the expenditure category 6.1, which is replacement revenue, kind of that providing government services up to the extent of the lost revenue calculation. It is the safest path to reporting. Now, it does create less reporting, which is good, but it's really that risk. It's not about we don't want to put in the extra effort. It's about how can we create the least amount of risk for Metro to have these funds scrutinized upon audit. So I'll use the example of like any of the fleet. So we had some sheriff's office fleet, we had trash trucks that we rented, we had the MNPD fleet, some of the fire and OEM. We genuinely believe those all fall under expenses related to the public health response, that wait times, social distancing for our employees, responding to the community. Those are all a response to the public health pandemic. There was a category for that. We chose to put it in revenue replacement because it is a government services. They are things we would be doing. It's just the safer, less risky path. Creates less reporting requirements, but also then nobody could come back and say, we don't think that actually met those requirements, and then they disallow them upon audit. When we had lost revenues, a refresher, the first calculation date was 12/30/21. Let me clarify. But our first calculation date resulted in 216 million of lost revenue based on our total allocation of 260. I think when we do the second calculation, even though we've had a really nice rebound, the areas that show the loss are still some of those that will show some loss. We probably will pick up that remaining amount. So we will report to you as a committee the expenditure category that it really meets from a pandemic response. But I think what we've decided to do is we'll also have another column that says as reported to Treasury. And a lot of those as reported to Treasury will end up falling under revenue replacement. It's just the best thing to do. It's the most common approach that we see cities taking. So right now we're really focused on the appropriations, but you're going to start to get more and more on the reporting side, and I just want you all to kind of have that heads up. So, all right, and I know there were some questions. Sarah, and then some.
I just wanted to comment that I'm really glad that we're going to have a discussion of some of the immigrant support that you referred to. I know that there's a financial limitation, but there's also a resource limitation for a lot of our refugees. And it's hard to even know what might happen with Ukraine eventually.
Absolutely.
But just our Afghanistan refugees, I think there's a misunderstanding that because they're, quote, allowed to come, that they have no legal requirements associated with that, and that is not the case. And I just think educating the public as we can in this hearing and providing that support is really, really critical. So I'm really pleased that that's going to be one of the priorities.
And I'm really happy to report that some of our nonprofits, they're already working together. Again, kind of what we saw with the Rafah Institute and United Way kind of coming together. I think it's just a great sign when we can get our nonprofits coming together in a partnership to do joint proposals. It just kind of goes back to that whole, we're not duplicating, we're enhancing, we're getting that synergy. So I already have some email kind of general proposal information that I look forward to bringing to the next meeting. So, Councilwoman Spoldova.
2 questions. So we have 4.9 left. how much are you anticipating for the reporting?
It's 1.3 is the first 1%. What I'm hoping, so that would be the ask. Given what we know now about, I don't feel like the 130 million is going to go away. It's really 129.9 to be exact. I don't think they're going to rescind all of that. If I don't know if it's going to be everybody takes a bit of a haircut, maybe the city and locals don't get touched at all. We just don't know. So we should probably at least reserve some piece of that 1%. I mean, we can pick up the other on the back end since we won't be spending it yet. I don't want to appropriate funds that don't need to be spent immediately. We can do it in tranches.
Got it. And when, do you know when we would have an idea as to when a decision would be made? Because I think we put several items on the back burner thinking that, well, the state can take care of some of the infrastructure needs like stormwater, and we were banking on the possibility of state putting a lot of that funding in, just so we have an idea going forward.
I'll research this more. This was literally something that came at noon today. So I'll for sure, probably Monday, we'd have the opportunity to ask that question with GFOA. They have really good weekly updates. That's all that I had to share. Are there any other questions? Everybody comfortable with kind of where we're at? And like I said, probably something with homeless and our immigration support, legal aid support coming at you. Okay, very good. Thank you all. We are adjourned. Pretty good, 5:30.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.